Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome on the Culture News. My name is David SERERO, and I have the grand pleasure today to have over the phone a first-class author. His name is Mr. AVRAHAM AZRIELI, and you probably have read his wonderful thriller and other books like The Masada Complex, The Jerusalem Inception, The Jerusalem Assassin, and as well as Christmas for Joshua, The Mormon Candidate, and many other fantastic books. He's on the phone today with us to talk about his new novel that is inspired by the Bible, ladies and gentlemen. And the name of that great book is called Deborah Rising. And I have over the phone this first-class author, the one and only Mr. AVRAHAM AZRIELI. How are you, AVRAHAM, today?
I'm well. Great to be with you.
It's a pleasure, and it is an honor for me to have you over the phone. You have no idea. I'm a huge fan. First of all, I must say the Masada Complex is a first-class political thriller. I'm very, very surprised, to tell you the truth, that some movie producers still didn't get the idea that this could be a first-class film. First of all,
there's been some feelers, but nothing happened yet.
Oh, well, they should get back to you with the check very, very quickly and with the pen and the contract, because that is a first class. That was in 2010. I said it was even more recent than that. But that's a fantastic book. So, my dear AVRAHAM, for the people who don't know you, who don't have the pleasure to know you, and trust me, after this interview, they will know you and they would have the desire to read and discover your books. Well, would you be so kind to let us know who you are? I mean, I know who you are, of course, but how you started, because you are a graduate from Columbia Law School in New York City. But why don't you start? What brought you to tell us what brought you to become an author?
I think I had a two-track life, professionally speaking. I love the law. I have a law degree from an Israeli law school before I came to New York, and got another law degree at Columbia, and worked for many years in the law, litigating cases before practically every level of the court, including one case before the United States Supreme Court. But I think my love for writing was more intense than my love for the law. So since about 2010, I've been writing full-time.
Wow, that's very, very impressive. And also about your, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Because I always say the childhood, no matter what your job is, your childhood always influences on how you do things later in life. Would you be so kind to let us know a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, how you grew up?
Sure. I grew up in Israel in the late 60s and the 70s, which was a very idealistic time. Tremendous love for the land, for Jewish history, and a lot of hopes for the future. I ended up living in the United States for the past few decades because I met a wonderful woman and ended up getting married and settling down here. But,
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've been in the U.S. and we've been married for many, many years. We have 4 kids and all is well. But I think, as you said, childhood is a tremendous impact on everybody. And for me, there's a lot of love for Israel, for the history of the Jews. Very unique. I think we're very unique people in that respect, and I'm sure people have attachment to their own heritage. Mine is obviously to the heritage of the Jews, the Israelites, etc., which is really where my books, most of my books spring from. This latest one, Deborah Rising, obviously is a story of a very unique woman, a woman who was a leader of the Israelites. More than 1,000 years before Cleopatra, which is really otherwise the earliest female leader. And a lot of the book takes place in the land that I'm familiar from hiking as a youth in the what we call the Samaria Hills,
Yeah.
the West Bank.
I mean, you're still very young, my dear Avraham. Don't say in your youth like you sound like it was 100 years ago. You're still very, very young, and we can feel in your writing really your youth, and also all your intelligence. You really put all your soul in your books. We're going to talk, of course, about Deborah Rising, because that's your fantastic new novel. Is there any word you can tell us about the Masada complex? Because that is really, really, so I know you wrote so many great books, but that book for me is like the Da Vinci Code for Dan Brown. You know what I mean?
Oh, thank you.
That or the Gioconda for Leonardo da Vinci. You know, this is you. You know what I mean? This book is, if there is one book that we have to read from you, that we have to know from you, is the Masada complex. Can you tell us, my dear Avram, before we talk about Deborah Rising, we're going to talk a lot about it, but can you tell us a little bit about the story of that book, but also how that idea and that book came out, please?
It's interesting what you said about the identification with the Masada complex. So for me, it is a very special book because it features a hero who, like me, is an Israeli American. Actually a woman, which is a difference. but I like to write about female characters in general. I think they're just fascinating and really interest me and very complex. Hence the Masada complex. And the story, in short, is about an Israeli immigrant who settles in Arizona and becomes an investigative journalist. And she really wants to become an American and put a very painful past she had in Israel, losing her family and traumatic experience in the Israeli military. She comes to Arizona, starts her life, becomes a very successful investigative journalist, and lo and behold, gets drawn into a scandal involving Israel. Where she has to investigate, and she gets drawn into. There is a subplot of it's really a spy novel / thriller. Spying. There is a political crisis, and she ends up really paying a terrible price for being an honest and really highly moral person who tries to do the right thing. In general, it also presents the complexity of Israel today. The conflicting emotions people have, the issues that Israel is facing, which are obviously existential. And in that respect, it is a book that I put a lot of my soul into.
Yeah, is that, forgive my ignorance, but is that like your first success?
I'm sorry, you were saying?
I said, was it your first success?
Yes. I think it is one of the more successful books. It still sells, and it still generates a lot of reviews and a lot of passions, and I always get asked about it. It is kind of parallel to the two Jerusalem books. I have two books, the Jerusalem Inception and the Jerusalem Assassin, which also involve Israel, but there are historical novels. The first part takes place on the eve of the Six-Day War, and the tremendous crisis and existential risk, again, that Israel was facing in 1967. And the second half, with the same cast of characters, happens many years later.
Oh, I love it.
On the eve of the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister.
Of course, I remember that, November 4th.
Yes, exactly, which is coming up.
Yes.
Yeah,
remember very vividly that day, very vividly, That was terrible. That was terrible. And also, we had our beloved friend Shimon Peres, who, did you know him a little bit, no?
Well, I grew up in Israel, and anybody who lived in Israel knew Shimon Peres. I met him personally a couple of times. I remember him coming to my yeshiva boarding school, actually, to give us a lecture in the late 70s. At the time, he was actually very pro-settlements, which today sounds odd, but he actually came to encourage us to go to the West Bank and to live there, etc. times obviously have changed. His views have changed now over the years.
Yeah.
But he was a very fascinating man, and his history.
Oh yeah, no, he was, and you feel, I don't know if you feel the same way, Abraham, but I had the pleasure to meet him like 4 or 5 times, and the first time I met him, I felt like, oh my gosh, I did something in my life. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you met the Pope or you met the President of America. Like, you did, I can't believe I met him. Finally, I can say to people I did something in my life, because he had that aura, above his head, around him, that was so magical. Well, he will be missed. So now let's go to something a little bit more happier, I should say, about this new book, Deborah Rising. Tell us, because you have your brand, your signature that is, as we discussed, about the thriller, about the political situations, about the spy. I mean, I love it. It's like the Jason Bourne a little bit type of action. I love it. But Deborah Rising, I feel, is something completely different. Maybe you're going to another path in your career where your writing has changed and become a little bit more spiritual, and you're going kind to your youth when you were in the yeshiva. Maybe it has a connection to that. I have the feeling. Tell us, my dear Avraham, how Deborah Rising, first of all, took places. Like, what made you say, I want to write a story inspired by the Bible? Because usually you write about like you mix history and political more into the modern days.
Correct. It's interesting point. It actually is not a religious book per se. It's inspired by a story in the Bible about the prophet Deborah.
Yeah.
And one of the authors that I tremendously like and enjoy reading, kind of a role model, is Ken Follett, and his career, which was tremendously successful in the spy novels, primarily World War II, etc. But he made a detour and wrote Pillars of the Earth, which is a historical novel set in the Middle Ages involving building cathedrals. And that actually has become his most successful book, which was counterintuitive and despite objections from publishers and agents. And I heard him speak about it, and it's very close to what I felt in taking maybe a break from intense political thrillers and trying something different. And the interesting thing is that Ken Follett actually said that when you write about historical figures or people in ancient times even, you need to remember that they had the same feelings that we do. They had jealousy and ambition. They had greed. They had passion. Love, they hated, etc. And that actually is a fascinating challenge for a writer to write about characters in ancient times, but really have them relatable to modern readers, and that's really what I'm trying to do. And
we didn't change a bit, like we think. I read, now I have this whole thing about Napoleon that I'm reading a lot about him, and you can tell that we didn't change a bit. We could think that over the years, even I did The Merchant of Venice a long time ago, last season of Broadway, and do you think we changed from the last 400 years? We didn't change at all. And even someone in the audience, a young kid, thought that I was the author. Like they thought that it was something that was written now. So that's very interesting when you're saying that that all these character of the ancient time they had all of that. The ambition, but also the good side, the bad side. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Again,
we use iPhones or we do video conferencing across the world, but still in the core, we're still human beings with the same flaws and great potential.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to say something, Avraham. I'm a huge fan. I don't know who does it, but I'm a huge fan of all the covers of your books.
Oh, thank you.
No, but really, you have no idea. I interview so many authors, and when they send me the books, I'm like, I see the cover, I'm like, oh, God, what am I going to read again? And then you start to read it, and it's really good. And I'm like, you had to change the cover. The cover is not good. But I want to say that when we see the covers of your book, we right away, of course, your name helps a lot, But I mean, we know we are in good hands when we see your name on the book. We know it's not going to be a waste of time. And from the first chapter, you confirm that all the time. But I want to say really the cover is very important, and the paper is very appreciable. We're happy to hold it. And I almost envy, to tell you the truth, the people who are reading your book, because I know they're going to have a good time. So what are you doing next, Avraham? What is your next thing?
Well, Deborah Rising actually is the beginning of a trilogy.
Wow.
About Deborah. And what I try to do here, what I am trying to do, and what I find really fascinating is trying to figure out how a girl in ancient Israel, at a time when women had no rights, women were basically like livestock. They had no rights to own anything. They had, every husband could have as many wives as he wanted. How could a woman become a leader? Well, parts of the world today are the same as in biblical times, unfortunately, and I think that's why the book is so relevant. So here's this girl, and there is nothing in the Bible about Deborah's upbringing. She shows up as the leader of the Israelites. So what I'm trying to do is try to understand through drama, obviously, and dramatize her story, what kind of challenges she dealt with, what kind of really horrible things happened to her that made her so strong and gave her all the skills and the resilience. So the story in Deborah Rising is actually when she's 13, 14 years old. She is being forced to marry this very unpleasant young man. She breaks away from that. She seeks freedom and goes on a quest actually to find a man who can turn her into a boy, because she is convinced that only a man can have freedom in that world. Obviously, we know from history or from the Bible that she never changed into a man. She became a leader as a woman. But that's kind of the first phase in her striving for freedom. So that's Deborah Rising, and I already wrote the sequel to that, which the publisher.
Oh, wow.
HarperCollins is looking at it right now, and there's going to be at least a third book, which I'm working on now, kind of telling her story as she broke off those restraints that held women down in that era.
Yeah, it's so relevant of today's time. You are absolutely right, and of course the joke I said about I wish it's over, to have many wives. That I mean that, of course, with a lot of humor.
Right.
And it's very funny because what happened when Moses. What I would love is one day you write a book about Moses.
Yes, well, Herman Wouk just released a couple of years ago. I think Herman Wouk was 98 when he released the book about Moses, and he has released a new book since then. He's 100 years old now.
Oh, wow.
So there is a book about Moses that Herman Wouk wrote, which obviously is a fantastic author, and it's a very clever book. If it's called The Lawgiver.
Wow, that's well said. That's very well said. Because when Moses was 40 years in the desert, and he went to his mother and he told him all the things he have done for those 40 years. And his mother told him, I don't care what you did. You could have called me 40 years without calling your mother.
The ultimate Jewish mother.
Yeah, exactly. They also don't change over the years, So where do you live now? You live in Washington, D.C., right?
Yes, we live near Washington, D.C. in Maryland, yes.
Wow, that's really good. A lot of great authors. I mean, that's the best city, I think, to live for authors who write about a spy political thriller. That's really the best place because it's so much. It's all about that, So it's a very, very beautiful. So I wanted to ask you a question, okay? That I asked to very important VIP people that I have the pleasure and honor to interview, such as yourself. What would you like to do when you grow up?
That's an interesting question. I actually love what I do now.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would like to have enough time to write all the books that are kind of running around in the back of my brain, and I have many ideas for additional books. But I think I've reached the profession that I like. I have tremendous joy not only in writing the books, but also in the feedback I have from readers. I receive emails from such interesting people all over the world, and that is just a great gift. I hope I live long enough to write many more books.
Oh, please I want you to be, eternal, because if every time you write a book, like the Masada complex, the Jerusalem assassin, the Jerusalem inception, and there are so many, the Mormon candidate, Trump, do not do mistake with Trump, is Trump, the bootstrap ultimatum, I'm sorry, your lawyer on the short leash, one step ahead, Christmas for Joshua, and of course this new novel inspired by the Bible called Deborah Rising. So before we say goodbye to each other, because as your book, they always have an ending. Unfortunately, we wish that those books would be endless, but unfortunately, we have to put an ending. I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you want to add about Deborah Rising?
Well, I hope readers check it out. There's a lot of information on my website, which is AZRIELIbooks.com. And I love to hear from my readers. There's a way to contact me through the website as well.
That is so wonderful of you. You know that
Thank you.
That as an author you have the desire to connect with the audience, because a lot of the authors, it was part of that thing in the old days, that the author has to stay in his room and write and not connect with people. But one thing that I really love about you, Avraham, besides of course your first-class talent, is that you understood the time that we are living in. You understood about social media. You understood about how to connect today with the audience, because we have the new technology. So why not using it? I also love that you're one of the rare authors, I want to say, that is going really to meet also their audience. You're traveling to do some lectures, some discussion, and also very important appearances. And I want to say that all your appearances, all your events are always packed. And if you have a library, if you own a Barnes and Noble, if you're one of these people, really have Avraham Azrieli to come and talk and do an event and do a signing of his books and talk about it. Trust me, your bookstore will be completely sold out. You have to contact him through his website, which, as he said, AzrieliBooks.com. Let me spell it out for you. Azrieli, it's AZRIELI, books, all in one word, books at plural, .com, and you have a contact page. Feel free to contact him and have him to do any kind of a book event. If you're a journalist, please, by all means, write about Avraham's books. You won't be disappointed, because you're going to have a good time. And if you are a book club, please contact Avraham also. Also, Avraham is very generous and helps a lot of people through philanthropy, so we can thank you enough for that. And I also want to say that your books are for everyone. They are not targeted for a special niche. They are for everyone who wants to have a good time, really. And most importantly, order his books, and especially the last one, Deborah Rising. And I hope you won't be mad at me, but order also, if you haven't read the Masada Complex, please go to buy it. And also the Jerusalem Assassin, Jerusalem Inception. Okay, now I think everybody understood my favorites. And of course, he's brand new, as he just announced, Deborah Rising, which you can order on all the important stores such as Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc., etc. My dear Avraham, thank you so much for taking some time out of your very busy schedule to be with us today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, David.
No, it's really an honor. And I want you to know, Avraham, that the doors of this show and of this radio station are yours 24/7. Your next book, we're going to talk on the other shows. We're going to talk on the about Deborah Rising and your other books on our next shows. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is David SERERO, and I had the pleasure to have today on the Culture News, which you can hear us on iTunes Radio, iTunes Podcast, and also on SoundCloud. Feel free to share the interview on Facebook, on Twitter, and any other social media platform. I had the pleasure and honor to have over the phone AVRAHAM Azrieli. My God, I'm not very well today. Okay, AVRAHAM Azrieli. That's what happens when you have talented people, so you feel bad. Who talked to us today about his first-class novel called Deborah Rising, which you can order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other great book stores, and you can order it online as well. Thank you so much, AVRAHAM, and talk to you very soon. Take care. Bye.
Take care.